Imagine booking your cruise, picking your cabin, planning your flights. And then the cruise line changes the rules. Or worse, changes the cruise. That is what is catching passengers out right now. Cruises are being canceled after people already booked. Passengers are being banned for behavior on board. New border checks are causing confusion. Buffet rules are changing. Dining systems are changing. And some updates can affect your money, your time, and even whether your holiday goes smoothly. The scary part is, many passengers do not find out until the email arrives, the app changes, or they are already standing at the terminal thinking, "Wait, when did that become a rule?" So today, we're going through 7 cruise changes passengers are getting caught by right now, and the new rules and updates you need to know before you sail. And stay for number 7, because that one can cost you money even if the cruise line gives you your cruise fare back. If you love cruising, press the like button and let's get into it. Number 1. The cruise that can be canceled after you already booked it. This is one of those cruise changes that makes passengers say, "Wait, they can do that?" You pick the ship, you choose the cabin, you plan the dates. You might book flights, hotels, transfers, parking, time off work, and tell the whole family, this is the cruise. Then months later, an email arrives. And suddenly, the cruise you booked is not happening anymore. That is why passengers are talking about this right now. Royal Caribbean canceled an entire Allure of the Seas sailing for March 2027 because the ship was chartered. In simple terms, a group booked the whole ship. So passengers who had already booked that cruise had to change their plans. Now, cruise lines will usually offer options. They may offer another sailing. They may protect the cruise fare. They may offer onboard credit. They may offer a refund if the new option does not work. And sometimes, they may help with certain travel change costs. But here is the part passengers miss. Your holiday is not always just the cruise fare. What about flights? What about the hotel the night before? What about transfers? What about non-refundable parking? What about the family member who already booked their own travel? That is where this becomes a real headache. The cruise line may move or refund the cruise, but that does not always fix every other part of your trip. And this is why booking everything around a cruise with no backup plan can be risky. I am not saying do not book early. Booking early can be smart. You may get better prices, better cabin choices, and more time to plan. But do not assume a cruise is untouchable just because you have a confirmation number. Cruises can be changed, ships can be chartered, ports can be swapped, itineraries can move, and sometimes the email arrives after you have already built the whole holiday around that one sailing. So before you lock in flights and hotels, check the rules. Can the flight be changed? Is the hotel refundable? Are your transfers flexible? Does your travel insurance cover cruise changes? Does it cover flights and hotels if the cruise line cancels or changes the sailing? And be careful with the cheapest non-refundable options. They look great when everything goes to plan, but when the cruise changes, they can become the most expensive part of the whole mess. Also, do not ignore every cruise email. I know, half of them are trying to sell you Wi-Fi, spa treatments, drink packages, shore excursions, photo deals, and a limited time offer that somehow comes back every 3 days. But hidden among all that noise can be the important email. The one that says your sailing, ship, port, time, or itinerary has changed. And if you do get that email, act quickly. The best alternative cabins and replacement sailings may not stay available forever. So the rule is simple. Book the cruise you want, but protect the travel around it. Use flexible flights where possible. Book refundable hotels if you can. Check your travel insurance properly, and never assume the cruise fare is the only thing at risk. Because sometimes the cruise line can give your cruise money back. But your flights, hotels, and travel plans are where the real damage begins. Number 2. The behavior crackdown that can get passengers banned. This is one of the biggest changes passengers need to understand. Cruise lines are not treating bad behavior like a small onboard drama anymore. They are cracking down. And in some cases, passengers are not just getting a warning, they are getting banned. Recently, 16 Carnival passengers were placed on the cruise line's Do Not Sail list after a brawl broke out at Port Miami after passengers had disembarked from Carnival Conquest. And that is the part people need to notice. This did not have to happen in the middle of the ocean for the cruise line to take action. It happened after the cruise, in the terminal area, and passengers still faced serious consequences. That matters because some passengers think, well, the cruise is over now. But if you are still in the cruise terminal, still connected to the sailing, still dealing with luggage, customs, or debarkation, your behavior can still follow you. And cruise lines do not want fights, threats, abuse, or chaos attached to their ships. Not on board, not in port, not at the terminal, not anywhere that turns into a viral video with luggage flying across the floor. The mistake is thinking a cruise ban only happens for something extreme at sea. It can happen because of what happens during the whole cruise experience. On the ship, in the terminal, at a private island, on an excursion, or in a foreign port where local police may also get involved. And that can become much more serious than passengers realize, because getting banned from one cruise line is bad enough. But if something happens in another country, you may also be dealing with local laws, fines, police, missed flights, legal trouble, or being left behind while everyone else goes home with fridge magnets and sunburn. So the rule is simple. Do not let one argument, one drunken moment, one queue-jumping fight, or one "I'm not putting up with this" moment become the reason your cruise history ends. If something starts getting heated, walk away. Get security. Let staff handle it. Move away from the drama. Because on a cruise, there are cameras, witnesses, staff, passengers filming on phones, and a very good chance the internet will meet you before your suitcase gets home. And once your name is on a do not sail list, that is not a souvenir you can return at guest services. The cruise might be over, but the consequences might not be. Number 3. The new Europe border checks catching travelers off guard. This is a big one for anyone cruising in Europe, because for years, a lot of travelers were used to the same basic routine. You arrive, you show your passport, you get a stamp, you move on. Maybe the line is long. Maybe someone in front of you cannot find their passport even though they knew this moment was coming for the last 3 hours. But the process felt familiar. Now, Europe has moved into a newer border system called the Entry/Exit System, or EES. And for many non-EU travelers going into the Schengen area for short stays, this means border checks can involve digital records, facial images, fingerprints, and automatic tracking of entry and exit dates. In simple terms, Europe is replacing the old passport stamp system with a digital system that knows when you entered and when you left. That might sound simple, but for cruise passengers, it can create confusion. Because cruises are not always like normal airport travel. You might fly into one European country, board a ship in another, visit several ports, leave the Schengen area, re-enter it. And suddenly the question becomes, wait, where exactly do I get checked? And more importantly, how much extra time should I allow? That is where passengers can get caught. The system itself is not something to panic about. It is not a visa. It is not a fee. And for most travelers, it is just another border process. But it can take extra time, especially if it is your first time being registered, if the border is busy, if the machines are slow, or if passengers do not understand what is happening. And if you are cruising from Europe, timing matters. A longer borderline can affect airport arrivals, transfers, cruise check-in, train connections, and even post-cruise flights. So do not treat European cruise travel like it is exactly the same as it was a few years ago. Before you sail, check the entry rules for every country on your itinerary. Check whether you are entering the Schengen area. Check whether you need extra time at the airport, cruise port, train station, or ferry terminal. And make sure your passport, name details, and travel documents are all correct before you leave home. Also, do not confuse EES with ETIAS. They are different things. EES is the border entry and exit system. ETIAS is the travel authorization system that many visa-exempt travelers will eventually need, but it is separate from EES. That confusion alone is catching people out. So if your cruise involves Europe, do not just think, "I've been before. I know how it works." The rules are changing, the checks are changing, and the line you expected to move quickly may not move as quickly as you hoped. Because the first place you do not want to learn about a new border system is standing in a queue with your cruise transfer leaving in 30 minutes. Number 4. The buffet seating rule that could stop table campers. This is one of those cruise changes that sounds small, until you are walking around the buffet holding a plate, looking for a table, while someone else is playing cards at a 4-seat table with 1 cup of coffee. That is when it suddenly feels very important. On some princess ships, passengers have reported signs asking guests not to use buffet tables for cards and games during busy times. And honestly, I can see why this one is getting attention. The buffet is already one of the busiest places on a cruise ship. Breakfast rush, lunch rush, sea days, port mornings. Everyone is trying to find food, coffee, cutlery, napkins, and a seat before their eggs go cold. So when people use buffet tables as a games room during peak hours, it can annoy passengers very quickly. Now, this does not mean people cannot play cards or board games. That is not the issue. Cruises are perfect for that. But the problem is where and when. If the buffet is packed and people are circling with plates, that table probably needs to be used for eating, not for a 3-hour card tournament with one half-finished tea sitting in the middle. What makes this update interesting is that Princess has reportedly been offering another space, like a dining room, for cards and games during the day. That actually seems like a smart compromise. People who want to play still get a proper place to sit, and people who want to eat at the buffet are not left wandering around like musical chairs has become part of the cruise entertainment. The mistake passengers can make is assuming public spaces work the same way all day. They do not. A quiet buffet table at 2:30 in the afternoon is very different from a packed buffet table at breakfast. So if you like playing cards, board games, dominoes, or doing puzzles on a cruise, check where the ship wants you to go. There may be a dining room, lounge, library, game area, or quiet space set aside for it. And if the buffet is busy, do not be the table camper everyone is secretly glaring at while pretending to look for ketchup. Because this is the kind of rule that might not sound like a big deal until you are the hungry passenger with nowhere to sit. Number 5. The dining change that could save passengers time. This is one of the better cruise updates because not every change is bad news. Some changes actually make the cruise easier. Carnival has been rolling out dining updates, including refreshed main dining room menus, new buffet options, rotating blue iguana specials, and a breakfast option called Bagels at Sea. And this matters because food is not just about food on a cruise. It is about time. It is about lines. It is about whether you can grab something quickly before a port day or whether you spend the morning wandering around the buffet like you are lost in a breakfast maze. A small dining change can make a big difference, especially in the morning. Because on port days, the buffet can become chaos. Everyone wants coffee, everyone wants toast, everyone wants eggs, everyone is looking at the time. And there is always one person standing in front of the bacon like they are making the biggest decision of their life. So a quick breakfast option, like bagels with different toppings, could be a simple win for passengers who do not want a full sit-down meal or a crowded buffet battle. It gives people another way to eat and move on with their day. And that is what cruise lines seem to be focusing on more now, not just big fancy dinners, but faster, easier, more casual options that fit how passengers actually cruise. Because sometimes, you do not want a 3-course breakfast. You just want food in your hand before your excursion leaves without you. The main dining room updates are also worth watching because included dining is one of the things passengers judge very quickly. If the food feels tired, people complain. If the menu improves, people notice. And if the included options get better, that can also make the cruise feel better value, especially when so many other things on board now cost extra. But here is the catch. Dining changes can vary by ship, rollout timing, and cruise line. So do not assume every ship will have every new option right away. Before you sail, check recent menus, look at the app, read the daily planner, and ask on board what food venues are open. That can save you time, especially on embarkation day and port mornings. The mistake passengers make is going on autopilot. They go to the same buffet line, at the same busy time, with the same crowd, then complain that cruising feels crowded. Sometimes the smarter move is simply knowing what else is open. Because the best dining change is not just the new food. It is having more ways to avoid wasting your cruise standing in line for breakfast. Number 6. The cruise tech change that could confuse passengers at check-in. This one is especially important for passengers who are not great with apps. Because more cruise lines are pushing passengers to do things before they arrive at the terminal. Check-in, travel documents, photos, health or security questions, boarding passes, dining times, cruise apps, and on Princess, the medallion system is a big part of that. Now, when it works, it can be brilliant. Your medallion can help with boarding, cabin access, ordering, payments, and finding your way around the ship. It can make things feel very easy. But if you are not used to the app, or if something does not save properly, or if you leave everything until the night before, it can become stressful very quickly. because the terminal is not where you want to be learning how the cruise app works. That is like deciding to learn airport security rules while standing barefoot next to the trays. Not ideal. The mistake passengers make is thinking, I'll sort the app out when I get there. But by then, you might be dealing with slow mobile data, bad Wi-Fi, a flat phone, missing passwords, a photo that will not upload, a passport scan that keeps failing, or a partner who says, I thought you did mine too. And suddenly check-in feels harder than it needed to be. So if your cruise line uses an app, medallion, digital boarding pass, QR code, online check-in, or travel checklist, do it early. Not at the port, not in the taxi, not while your suitcase is already tagged and someone is asking for your documents. Do it at home, calmly, with your passport, booking number, travel insurance, emergency contact details, and a charger nearby. Also, take screenshots. Screenshot your boarding pass. Screenshot your check-in status. Screenshot important confirmations. And if you are nervous with technology, print what you can. Because phones are wonderful until the battery dies, the app logs you out, or the screen brightness decides to make your boarding pass invisible in the sun. And do not assume every passenger in your booking is finished just because one person is. Check each traveler. Make sure names, birthdays, passport details, photos, and emergency contacts are right, because one incomplete detail can slow the whole group down. The technology is meant to make cruising smoother, but only if you deal with it before the cruise. So the rule is simple. Get the app sorted early. Check every passenger. Take screenshots. Bring backup paperwork if you need it, because the worst place to discover your cruise check-in is incomplete is standing at the terminal while everyone else is walking on board. Number 7. The flight and hotel trap. When cruise plans change. This is the part passengers often forget. When a cruise line changes or cancels a sailing, the cruise fare is only one piece of the holiday. You might get offered another cruise. You might get onboard credit. You might get a refund. You might even get some help with certain travel costs, depending on the situation and the cruise line. But what about everything else? The flights, the hotel the night before, the airport parking, the transfers, the pet sitter, the time off work, the family member who booked separately because everyone said, this cruise is definitely happening. That is where things can get messy. Because the cruise line may be dealing with the cruise booking, but your airline, hotel, parking company, rideshare, travel agent, and insurance company may all have their own rules. And if you book the cheapest non-refundable option for everything, that cheap deal can suddenly become very expensive. This is why a cruise change can hurt even when the cruise line gives the cruise money back. You might still be left trying to move flights, cancel hotels, change dates, rebook transfers, or explain to your family why the whole trip has turned into a spreadsheet with a headache. And the more people involved, the worse it gets. One cabin is annoying. 3 cabins, 4 flights, 2 hotels, and 1 person who booked through a different website. Now, you are not planning a holiday anymore. You are managing a small travel disaster. So, the smart move is to protect the pieces around the cruise. Book flexible flights if you can. Choose refundable hotels where possible. Check whether your travel insurance covers cruise changes and related travel costs. Keep receipts. Save emails. And do not assume that because the cruise line changed the cruise, everyone else will automatically give you your money back. They might not. Also, act quickly if a change email arrives. Do not leave it sitting there while you think, I'll deal with it later. The best replacement cabins, better sailing dates, and cheaper flight changes may disappear fast. And that is how passengers get caught. They focus on the cruise refund, but the real damage is hiding in the flights, hotels, and extras wrapped around it.